Craig with Apex. I'm going to go over the 1500 PSI 1 liter system startup and setup today. So first of all, mine's all set up. I'm just going to go over everything I did. All your cables back here. So the coolant in from the chiller is going to be coming from chiller out. Coolant out of the system will go into chiller in, the chiller inlet in the back. Your braided hoses, they should be labeled, but if they're not, pump outlet should go to CO2 inlet right here. Pump inlet right here should go to CO2 outlet. This one down here, right here. Ensure that the coalescing filter is orientated the right way. Flow is going to be coming this way. There should be flow marks somewhere. There they are down here. So there's a flow mark right here showing which way the flow is. It's going to be going into the pump. The CO2 cylinder, obviously, goes over here to your CO2 tank. When you're putting this on, we supply in the little plastic bag, little clear plastic bag should come with a little white O-ring or a little white washer looking gasket. I do not have any extras to show you, but you will put that little white O-ring or gasket right inside here, and that's what your seal is going to be on your tank. On the top, extractor top inlet goes straight into the extractor. Separator inlet will go on the outer portion of this diameter. And separator outlet goes to the center hole on the top of your separator. Your separator coolant top comes straight to the top of the separator. And you have this one connecting the bottom of the separator to the collection cup. The bottom of the collection cup then goes to separator coolant bottom. Over here on the pump, you have this cord hanging out. Connect it right here. It screws in right below the computer. Ensure that your 1 liter system is plugged in and that your pump is plugged in. First thing you'll do, come over here, turn your chiller on, set your set point. So we're going to turn this down to 65. Recommended setting. All this can be found page 17 of the owner's manual. So we've got our chiller set, 65. Come over here, I'm going to close this vent here. I'm going to close this vent here. I'm going to ensure that this valve is closed and this valve is closed, and that this valve is open and this valve is open. If I wanted, I could close these two and open these two. Either way will work. I prefer to do it this way, or at least today I do. Make sure my extractor is closed. Make sure my separator is closed here and here. These clamps got that 1/8 inch to 16th inch spacing right there. Make sure my bottle is open and that it's got more than 600 PSI, which it does. Make sure that your system's plugged in and your breaker is on. Make sure your pump is plugged in. Come over here. It hasn't been reset since the last time, so I'm just going to push the start button to reset it. System ready, hold start for 3 seconds to begin. So I've got everything closed, my chiller's on, and hold 3 seconds. So what's happening now, the system's filling up. Once it reaches a certain pressure, the pump will kick on. Right there, the pump just kicked on. So now what we want to watch, we want to try to keep this around 420. It takes a few minutes to stabilize. As you can see, as this climbs, this is also going to climb. This is your extractor, here's our separator. So right now this is at 400. I'm not going to mess with my green valve just yet, but as this climbs, I need to watch and make sure this stays around 420. If right now it's not at 400, I would come over here and increase or decrease to bring this either up or down. So if I was at 475, 450, I'd decrease. If I was down here at 300, I'd increase it, get as close to 420 as possible. And every 5 or 10 minutes, check it, readjust the green valve. And the goal is to keep this right around 420. So as you can see, I've already got mine set. I haven't, and then once you get it set, you don't need to mess with that green valve every time. Maybe every other time or so, you may need to check it, but for the most part, it should stay pretty steady. So now what's happening? I'm just watching, make sure this will eventually, our extractor pressure will eventually get between 1,000 and 1,200 psi, and this should be around 420. And then your run cycle. So right now it's showing that the 4-hour cycle is selected. If I wanted to scroll through 4-hour, 3-hour, 2-hour, or 1-hour cycle, I would just tap this button. So watch when it pulls up on 4-hour cycle, and I'll tap it. It's now a 1-hour cycle. I just went back to extract time. 2-hour cycle, 3-hour cycle, back to a 4-hour cycle. If you have your extractor completely full, I recommend doing a 4-hour cycle. What will happen is at the end of 4 hours, it'll go into recovery mode. It'll take it another 20-30 minutes to recover all the CO2. And it won't recover all the CO2. It'll get this down to about 200 psi. Once it gets to 200, the pump will shut off. Then what you'll do is open up this vent here, and relieve all that CO2 that's in the system. And make sure you close your CO2 bottle before you open up these reliefs, or these vents. And then you're safe once everything's reading 0, every single gauge is reading 0, then you're good to open up your extractor, pull out your spent material, and then open up your separator and your collection cup to get to the oil. When you're putting these bolts back in, hand tighten them all, then you'll do a star pattern really quick. Tap, 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 and then once around. You do not need to over tighten these. That's what the O-ring in here is for. Same with the separator. There's gaskets in here, so when you tighten these up, there should be an 1/8 to a 1/16 spacing right there, just like you see here. Do not have metal to metal. That will crush your gaskets. Now I'm going to go line. Like I said, before you push that start button for relieving all that pressure, make sure this bottle's closed. If not, you're going to lose all your CO2. Then you're good to go ahead and open up the extractor, open up the separator, take off your collection cup here and get your oil out. These blue lines here, so you can actually take your separator cup away from the system, carry it somewhere to take the oil out, actually pop off right here and right here. And then you can actually pick this up and take it where you need it. And when you come back, ensure that you put these all the way back into the clip. If not, your separator will freeze over during the extraction process. There you go, it's all connected back together. If you decide you want to end your extraction early, what you can do is do a forced recovery. So we're 2 hours in, for example, and we say, you know what, we're done. We just want to put it in recovery mode. Just push and hold this, and you actually watch the screen over here when I do this. You push and hold it. You hear it click, and then it says on the screen, I don't know if you can see or not, it says shutdown mode, recovering CO2. Then you just sit and wait. What it'll do is slowly start pulling all this down, and like I said, the system will eventually shut off once it reaches around 200 psi or so. If it gets down to 200, say 205, 210 psi, and it's taking a long time to recover that last 5 psi, what you can do, help it out a little bit, just so you ain't sitting there letting the pump run all night. Open this, either open that one or open this one here, and bring it down the additional, yeah, that one there. So if you open this one here, so if you get down to about 205, 210 psi, and it's not wanting to recover that last 5 psi, and you want to, end the recovery, just crack this valve open. It'll drop the pressure below 200. The pump will shut off, and then you're good to go ahead and close your CO2 bottle. Open up this valve, and that releases all the pressure. Then you're safe to get in here and here. During recovery, the manual recommends turning the chiller up to 110 degrees Fahrenheit to help speed up the recovery process. Some people don't like doing that because those higher temperatures will turn your oil darker colors. So if you like the lighter, more blonde, more yellow color, I would not recommend going over about 90 degrees on your chiller. Keep in mind, if you do not warm up your chiller, then it's going to be harder to get the oil out of here. It'll all be stuck to the walls. So it's a give-take. If you want to make it easy to clean this out and speed up the recovery process, then turn your chiller up to 110, and all your oil is going to melt down into the collection cup. If you really care about that yellow oil and preserving flavor, then I would only turn that chiller up to about 80-85 degrees max, and then you might just have to do a little bit of scraping inside of here when you're finished to get out that harder oil.